puppet show, a brutal prince, a hedge knight who couldn't walk away, 5 minutes of combat, and the prince who may have been House Targaryen's best hope is dead, in the dirt at a forgotten tournament. Baelor Breakspear, Prince of Dragonstone, Hand of the King, and heir to the Iron Throne, falls at Ashford Meadow in 209 AC, during the trial of 7 that follows Duncan the Tall's defense of Tansel the Puppeteer. This is not about Robert's rebellion. It is not about the Mad King. This is about the moment Westeros lost the one prince who might have given House Targaryen a stronger future before he ever got the chance. The man was Baelor Breakspear, and here's why his death at Ashford Meadow helped put House Targaryen on a far more fragile road. Before we go any further, subscribe, because in Westeros, the smallest mistake can bury a dynasty, and we're digging up all of them. Picture Westeros in 209 AC. The first Blackfyre Rebellion is over, but over is doing a lot of work there. The fighting has stopped. The damage has not. The realm is not healed. It is stitched together. Lords who once backed Daemon Blackfyre are still alive. Old loyalties are still smoldering. The crown has survived, but survival is not the same thing as stability. And standing between that uneasy peace and another round of chaos is Prince Baelor Breakspear. Baelor is not just another royal with a good last name. He is Prince of Dragonstone. He is Hand of the King. He is the heir to Daeron II. More than that, he appears to be the rare Targaryen who has the full set of tools Westeros actually needs: legitimacy, military credibility, political judgment, and the respect of the realm. The last part matters. Not fear, respect. Westeros has never lacked for men who can frighten people. It has always been running a surplus on those. What it lacks are rulers who can hold together wounded factions without making the wounds worse. Baelor looks like one of those men. Why does that matter? Look at the alternatives. His father, Daeron II, is still king, but he is aging. His brother Aerys is bookish, withdrawn, and more interested in prophecy and study than the grind of rule. Rhaegal is remembered as gentle but unstable. Maekar is formidable and capable, but hard-edged, the kind of man who can win obedience without necessarily creating trust. Baelor is different. He feels like the bridge, warrior and diplomat, strength with restraint, the kind of prince who could take a realm still bruised from civil war and keep it from cracking open again. But while the fate of the dynasty rests on his shoulders, another story is moving toward him from the edge of the map. A hedge knight named Duncan is riding toward Ashford Meadow. No lands, no famous sigil, no powerful father, just a huge man in a dead knight's armor and a conscience that will not leave him alone. Two paths are about to collide, and when they do, Westeros loses the wrong man. The tourney of Ashford should be routine. Bright banners, lords posturing, knights competing, princes wandering around like they invented sunlight. Instead, it becomes the place where Targaryen stability takes a fatal blow. Prince Aerion Targaryen, later remembered as Bright Flame, comes across a puppet show performed by Tansel, a Dornish puppeteer. One of the puppets depicts a dragon being slain. Aerion takes that as an insult to House Targaryen and reacts the way petty cruelty always reacts when you hand it power. He destroys the puppets and assaults her publicly. Now here's where the spark hits the powder. Prince Aegon, Egg, is there in disguise as Duncan's squire. He sees what Aerion is doing and runs to get Duncan. Duncan arrives, sees a helpless woman being brutalized, and does the thing that makes him who he is. He steps in. He strikes Aerion to stop him. Morally, it is the right choice. Socially, it is suicide. Because in Westeros, hitting a prince is not a misunderstanding. It's not a teachable moment. It's the kind of act that gets your life shortened for the convenience of everybody else. Aerion escalates immediately. He demands a trial by 7. Not a duel, not an apology. A formal God-judged melee. 7 champions on each side, with the gods meant to reveal who stands in the right. This is law. Violence, theater, and religion fused into one brutal machine, and Duncan is suddenly trapped inside it. Think about how impossible his position is. He is a hedge knight. He has no house to call on, no sworn swords, no allies waiting in the wings. He needs champions willing to risk death for a man with no power against princes of the blood. On paper, he should already be dead. And then Baelor Breakspear steps forward. That is the moment this stops being a local outrage and becomes a dynastic disaster, because the heir to the Iron Throne does not have to enter this fight. He could stay above it. He could let lesser men sort it out. He could choose safety, distance, royal convenience. He does not. He joins Duncan's side because Duncan defended the innocent, and Baelor understands exactly what that means. If the crown allows a prince to brutalize the weak in broad daylight with no answer, then the rot is not out in the provinces, it is sitting in the royal house itself. So Baelor chooses principle. And in Westeros, that is often just another word for expensive. The trial of 7 is savage. 14 men in a formal, God-judged melee where survival decides the truth. Armor collides, horses crash, men are thrown down, trampled, crushed, and broken. It is not elegant. It is not heroic in the pretty storybook sense. It is confusion, panic, impact, and most of all, pain. The champions clash, men fall. The field becomes mud and blood and shouted names. And then the fatal moment comes. Prince Maekar, Baelor's own brother, swings his mace in the chaos. The blow catches Baelor in the head. By every reasonable reading of the canon, it is an accident. But history does not care much about intention once the skull is broken. Baelor Breakspear falls at Ashford Meadow. Duncan is ultimately vindicated. Arion is judged in the wrong. And the realm has just lost the man who looked most capable of carrying it forward. Baelor dies from Maekar's blow after the trial of 7 at Ashford. That is the knife in this story. Not just that a prince died. The wrong prince died. Baelor's death does not instantly destroy his entire branch of the family. His son Valar remains heir after him. His younger son Materis is still in the royal line. So Ashford is not the moment House Targaryen collapses in one clean motion. It is worse than that. It is the moment the dynasty loses its strongest adult heir, right before the next disaster arrives. Later that same year, the Great Spring Sickness tears through Westeros. King Daeron II dies, Valar dies, Materis dies, in one sweep, the stable branch that should have carried the dynasty forward is gutted. Only after those deaths does the crown pass to Aerys I. And here is where Ashford starts to feel catastrophic in hindsight. If Baelor survives, he likely becomes king when the plague hits. Even if the sickness still takes his sons, Westeros would have Baelor on the throne during a moment of fear, grief, and dynastic vulnerability. Instead, it gets Aerys I, a king remembered less for active rule than for books, prophecy, and withdrawal, while much of governance falls to Bloodraven. The realm does not explode overnight, but it does remain brittle. Blackfire dangers continue. Instability lingers. The dynasty survives, but it does so with weaker footing. That is the real tragedy here. Ashford did not single-handedly doom House Targaryen in one afternoon, but it did kill the prince best positioned to guide the dynasty through the disasters that followed. And once plague wipes out the rest of his immediate line, the crown is forced onto a less stable path. This is how dynasties really break, not always with one dramatic explosion, sometimes with the quiet removal of the one person you most needed to keep breathing. Now let's step carefully into the what if. Imagine Baelor survives. He becomes king. He faces the Great Spring Sickness from the throne, not the grave. He brings his legitimacy, his political skill, and his reputation for balance into one of the most dangerous succession moments House Targaryen ever faced. Does that guarantee paradise? No. Does it guarantee the Mad King never happens? But it very likely gives the dynasty a stronger foundation, a steadier center, a ruler better equipped to ease factional tension and navigate the aftershocks of rebellion and plague. In other words, Baelor living does not promise a golden age. It does suggest a less fragile future. And that is what makes Ashford so haunting. The man who might have helped the dynasty bend instead of crack dies because he chose to defend the innocent. That is not just sad. That is Westeros in one sentence. A puppet show really did help trigger one of the most consequential deaths in Targaryen history. Not because Baelor lost a war, not because he failed the realm, because he chose to defend what knighthood is supposed to defend. And sometimes in Westeros, honor is the most dangerous thing of all. So when people talk about the fall of House of Targaryen, they usually start later with madness, wildfire, rebellion, dragons long gone, and a dynasty collapsing under its own damage. But maybe one of the most important breaks came much earlier, at Ashford Meadow, at a puppet show, in 5 minutes of sanctioned violence, when the prince who may have been House Targaryen's best hope died in the dirt before he ever got to wear the crown. Drop your Baelor Lives timeline in the comments. How different does Westeros become if Baelor Breakspear survives 209 AC? Subscribe, because we're going deeper into the moments that shaped Westeros. And trust me, this realm has no shortage of beautiful disasters.